I've been waiting 5 months to talk to you, and you've been hard to find.
I know.
Would it be fair to say that you've been in hiding?
Yes.
Why?
When you realize that the people that you know and you're close to and love have been involved in something that has to do with kidnapping and people dying, you start to think, oh my gosh, are they going to come after me? Oh my gosh, are they going to come after me? Like,
from the planet of Kolob to the polygamy of Christ, we investigate everything deep within Mormonism.
This is Melanie Gibb, Mormon and best friend to Lorie Chad.
As you recall, Lorie Chad Daybell has 2 children missing, 1 dead ex-husband, and is married to a doomsday cult leader in Idaho, Chad Daybell,
who also has a dead wife,
who writes fictional novels about the end of days and the Armageddon when the army of Israel, populated by Mormons, go against the UN troops out of Denver. Yes, this was his last novel. There are going to be 3,000 stripling soldiers located in the mountains of Idaho who are prepared to march on the city of Denver in the last battle of Armageddon on U.S. soil. Or so his fictional or not so fictional novel states. And for those of you who are history buffs, the Danites that went against the U.S. soldiers during the 19th century also called themselves the Army of Israel. So we have modern day Danites located in the mountains of Idaho in what is known as tent cities, getting prepared for the second coming and Armageddon.
once again, Lorie Chad Daybell, who is presently in jail for child neglect or failing to disclose where her children are, JJ and Tylee. In this interview, Melanie Gibb discloses that she feels she does not need an attorney because she is telling her truth and God will protect her. Again, one needs to wonder why God didn't protect Charles Vallow, whom Lorie disclosed to Melanie that Charles was a zombie coming to kill her, and afterward, Charles Vallow ends up dead by a gunshot wound by Lorie and her brother. So this is a very interesting legal nugget disclosed by Melanie, that Lorie Vallow had a delusional belief that she was in danger of being killed by her zombie husband, Charles Vallow, thereby setting up a premeditated state of mind to kill her husband. This would totally do away with the defense of self-defense, because there is some sort of premeditation in the fact that Lorie Chad Daybell had a belief, a delusional belief, mind you, but not an insane belief, that Charles Vallow, her zombie husband, was coming to kill her. And so she and her brother killed her zombie husband first, certainly setting up a motive and premeditative state of mind and doing away with the defense of self-defense. If I were a prosecutor, this is one piece that I would be looking at. And this was disclosed in this interview by Melanie Gibb, which I find completely fascinating. Another legal nugget disclosed by Melanie is that Chad Daybell personally called her on the phone and asked Melanie to lie to the police and tell the police that she had JJ and was keeping him at her house in Arizona. Now, if true, this constitutes, or I would believe, it supports the allegation that Chad Daybell was involved in a conspiracy to kidnap Lorie Daybell's children. So why isn't Chad Daybell sitting in an Idaho jail just like Lorie Daybell? Chad Daybell, who conspired to say, hide the children from the police, was involved in a conspiracy to commit a crime? And also, does he have information? Well, why isn't Chad Daybell being arrested or at least squeezed by the police for information? Everybody can have their speculation, but I do know from experience that these cult leaders always have some sort of shadowy men in black handler who feeds them information, which many believe that many believe that Chad Daybell was a visionary and could prophesy. Well, I don't think he so much as prophesied as just communicated information he was given by his quote unquote men in black CIA handlers. Is this the reason why Chad isn't in jail? Is that he knows more than Lorie, and Lorie's just this unwitting victim who believed the cult leader Chad, who basically, as all good cult leaders are, handled by shadowy government figures. So here are some more nuggets, not in any particular order, that is disclosed by the Melanie 3-part series of interviews. And I'm going to go quickly through them. Number 1, Lorie and Chad knew how many zombies were in each state of the Union and would hold prayer meetings in their portals, and afterwards would take an accounting of how many zombies they had killed in each state. Lorie received a revelation that Charles was supposed to die in a car accident on his way back from Texas. She shared this with Melanie, whose reaction when Charles had not died in this car accident, Melanie states that Chad hedged his bet by saying that other people's free agency had interfered with the destiny of Charles Vallow being killed in the car accident. Therefore, after Charles was actually killed by a gunshot by Alex, Chad Daybell's brother-in-law. Lorie also discussed with Melanie the life insurance on Charles Vallow and the fact that if he died, that she would be entitled to approximately $1 million in life insurance. Even if the life insurance had been changed to Kay, the grandmother, Lorie was still ahead by her husband's death because she would be entitled to death benefits on her children, JJ and Tylee. Also, the commentator or the newscaster in the interview states that with all the life insurance and previous husband's deaths, that Lorie was making approximately $6,000 a month. That's fairly good living for simply having husbands who have died in the past. Also was disclosed that Lorie was extremely interested in Charles Vallow's life insurance, and Charles caught her hacking into his life insurance online, and he had to notify his insurer not to allow Lorie to have access to his accounts. Again, there is video that has emerged in which Charles Vallow has called the police, and he is explaining to them that he is extremely concerned because his wife has gone through a personality change, that she believes he is a zombie, and that he is inhabited by a man called Ned Snyder. I looked up any Snyder in Mormon history, and there was a John Snyder in Nauvoo. He doesn't seem like he was of any import. I always look at the names because the names are very important and have significance, but so far I don't see any significance to Ned Snyder as being the name of Charles Vallow, zombie impersonator. Now, Melanie in her interview comes across as eminently reasonable. But yet she expresses several delusional beliefs that she still holds on to. One of them is that Charles Vallow is a visionary. He has a gift of visions. 2, that Lorie is in jail as a result, in part, of communing with negative spirits across the veil. Another interesting nugget is that Chad Daybell believed that he had a portal to the other side across the veil, and this portal was in his closet. This is reminiscent of Harry Potter. And I do know that Harry Potter is a very popular movie in MK Ultra presently. Whenever they are training their Manchurian candidates, they use many of the symbolism out of Harry Potter. Some people believe that Chad's whole system of light and dark spirits was based on Dungeons and Dragons. I have no idea, since I don't participate in the Dungeon and Dragon craze. But Melanie, despite her appearance of being sensible, appears to be delusionally based still. How can a woman who claims to be a conventional Mormon hold on to these beliefs still, but that prior to all the deaths, she continued to believe, or was on the fence? I guess we can call it like the fence sitters in the Mormon myth of the pre-existence, where 1/3 of the host of heavens sat on a fence, which created doom for the rest of the fence sitters. Of course, Brigham Young believed the fence sitters were blacks, but anyway, the other interesting aspect is this multiple life or multiple probations. Multiple lives. This was a belief held by Brigham Young and passed on to the fundamentalists, that you become a god when you have progressed so far through your multiple lives or multiple probations that you become so expert that you start remembering all your lives. And that's when you reach the celestial kingdom, is when you remember between all your lives, and therefore you have eternal life because you're always remembering all your multiple lives. That is one aspect that I read in Brigham Young's Journal of Discourses when he was talking about pre-existence and multiple lives. Also, the Adam God theory is basically that Adam was the begotten son of God. In other words, he was a clone of God. So was Christ. Christ was a begotten son, not a son done through, not an offspring done through sex, but an offspring done through a cloning process in which no woman was needed. Now, later on, I know other church leaders believe that Mary was a necessary component for the sex magic trick, but Brigham Young himself believed that when you call Christ the only begotten son, meaning God begot him, God begat Christ as a hermaphroditic being. And Adam Diamond, or Adam Cadman, is also a Kabbalah figure in which he's a hermaphroditic being that is both female and male, and therefore can clone himself. And when he created Eve, he basically created Eve out of a part of himself, which is also a cloning process. Also interesting that Melanie visited Lorie in Idaho approximately the early part of 2020. She said that Tylee was already gone, and Lorie explained that Tylee was gone to college, which Melanie says didn't seem right because Tylee was only 17. However, Lorie at that time started to try and convince Melanie that JJ was exhibiting signs of being a zombie, that JJ was no longer inhabiting his body and he was possessed by a negative spirit. However,